Not Quite
Darkness
is a podcast that contains spoilers, opinions, and general. Listener discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, children of all ages, thank you so much for joining in for another great episode of Not Quite Darkness. My name is Keith Brooks. Here with me, as always, for a howling good time is Chad Dowdy. Chad, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, Keith. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You look like you're ready to trek through this movie that we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, that is true. The movie is American Werewolf in London. I got my puffer jacket on. I also have my Jansport bag. So, because that's part of placement. So let's get started on this journey, Keith.
Absolutely. If you're unfamiliar with this podcast, where have you been for at least a year? Here's what we do is we go through the documentary In Search of Darkness and we watch all the shitty movies that they recommend we watch. And
not all are shitty.
Not all are shitty. I agree completely. And today we are talking about the 1981 release of a classic, An American Werewolf in London. Everybody who knows this show knows Chad loves werewolf movies. So, Chad, can you talk to me about what this movie's about?
It is true. I'm not the biggest fan of werewolf movies. Spoiler alert, there's not a werewolf movie that I love. That doesn't mean I don't like some werewolf movies.
Yeah.
But to me, there's some perfect vampire movies. There's perfect zombie movies. There's perfect ghost movies. I haven't found a perfect werewolf movie yet.
I don't see how you haven't watched Wolf starring Jack Nicholson, but go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen that one. So, yeah, American Werewolf in London. This is, we do this from In Search of Darkness, according to the interview we did with the creator of In Search of Darkness, David Weiner. This is his favorite horror film. His least favorite is American Werewolf in Paris, which we will not be covering.
No, because it's not the 80s, right? It's not
right. But if you want to, you probably own it or something. If you want to talk about how much you love it too, you can after we're done with this.
I do remember when it came out in theaters. I don't think I had even seen the initial one, but I remember liking That Thing You Do a lot, and that guy was in it. And I just remember wolf titties. That's all I remember. The Eiffel Tower and wolf titties. Those are my memories of that movie. So
I think they maybe bungee jump off the Eiffel Tower or something. I
think
can't
so.
remember.
I think Bush was on the soundtrack. I kind of vaguely think the soundtrack was good. I don't know.
Let's just call an audible. Let's just cover American Werewolf in Paris. Forget American Werewolf in London. Let's just do it. So American Werewolf in London, like Keith said, it's a classic. So basically it starts off with two Americans, Jack and David, traveling the European countryside. They look a little bit like this with their big jackets on. And basically they just kind of walk into a random pub.
The Sacrificial Lamb, I think is the name of it.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Then, like it happens, you've seen it a million times. Non-locals walk into a bar, a pub that just stops. Everybody stops and stares at them. Super uncomfortable. What are these American kids doing here, in this bar? But then eventually everyone starts like having a good time and they're even joking around with them until Jack asks about the witchcraft star on the wall. And again, it's like a record scratch again, him asking about that. I feel like, you got a satanic star on your wall. People may ask about it.
Yeah, you would think, but I also feel that the guy, like right before they ask about the star, dude was telling a super racist joke. So like I feel that lets you know what kind of neighborhood you're in. You know what I mean? It's not like a Walgreens in East Proctor. Like it's a very small secluded place. So I think everybody that comes through there looks at the star and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know what that is about," and then just goes about their day. You know what I mean?
Fair point. Fair point. But because they asked about it, they basically just get kicked out
Yeah.
of the pub at this point. They just kick them out, but they do tell them, stay on the road, don't get off the road, stay away from the moors.
Beware the moon. Yep.
I don't know what moors are.
Swamps.
Yeah, I just feel like that the only time I've ever really heard it is in this movie. And so that's my only recollection of the moors. I always just thought like, oh, it just must be like some foggy plains or something like that. The moors. But so again, stay away from the moors, stay on the road. And after they leave, the town folk are clearly like hiding something because, you get the whole, we shouldn't send them out in this. There shouldn't be any witnesses. It's just a lot of like shady stuff they're talking about to let you know, weird stuff is going on. But of course, being the dumb Americans that we all are, they get off the road. They get off the road and then they hear some sort of howling in the distance and it freaks them out a little bit, obviously. And they run, but it's getting closer to them and Jack gets attacked and just ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
Basically. And David, who is our main character, the titular American werewolf in London, he gets bit or scratched or something.
I think he gets like
too.
shoe scratch because he gets like on the face and then across the chest, which like
definitely
as I was
across his chest.
Yeah, as I was watching this, I'm like, that would be a badass fucking tattoo, but I already have a tattoo there. But I get like a rip through it. Anyway, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking aloud. Go ahead.
Yeah, because later on, he's got his shirt off half the time and he's got the scars there. It looks pretty dope.
Yeah.
So as he's like kind of being attacked, scratched, the some of the townsfolk shoot this wolf. It's a werewolf, but they shoot the werewolf. And then our main character, David, wakes up in a hospital and it's been 3 weeks, I think they say, that he's been out. His friend is dead. But we meet Nurse Price, and she's played by Jenny Agutter, if I'm pronouncing that right. I love her.
I love her.
She is in Logan's Run, one of the Child's plays. She is a beautiful woman.
Beautiful.
I love her so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I love her in this too. Like she's awesome in this. So basically the doctor comes in and he says that they were attacked by an escaped lunatic.
What you're skipping over one important part where that British nurses take peeks at your penis to guess what religion you are. And apparently circumcised penises weren't popular in 1981 in England. And yeah, that's what that is. So
I don't know if I don't know if I watched the mature version of this. Then I don't recall that, Keith. I might have blocked it out.
The one nurse is like super cheeky about it too, because that's what she leads with. She's like, "Oh, I think he's Jewish. Why do you think that? Oh, because I took a little peek at his peekaboo," or whatever she says. It's a weird exchange. Go ahead.
A lot of people are weird in this movie, not just these nurses, for crying out loud. So again, the doctor comes in. You've been out for 3 weeks. You were attacked by a escaped lunatic. But David says, no, a wolf attacked him. Not a werewolf, just a wolf. It was clearly a beast that attacked me and my buddy. Look at the scar on him. Like what escaped lunatic could do something like that?
Absolutely. With extended nails? Like what the fuck is Wolverine attacking him?
Yeah, it's definitely like a saber-tooth type attack or something like that. So I truly believe this. If you take away the fact that there was a wolf attack, a werewolf attack. This does not paint a pretty picture of where they are, because the town folk are so mean to him. Like you said, the nurses are looking at his junk. The doctor is kind of an ass about, I don't care.
With that. Yeah.
He's a lunatic.
I don't know if someone looking at your junk is always the most mean thing. Like, there's been plenty of time when someone looks at my junk and I'm like, thank you very much. Like, it's a complimentary thing, So, but yeah, but the
Were you
doctors,
unconscious at the time, Keith? That's the question.
even if I woke up and somebody's like, hey, while you were out, had a look at your dick. Good job. Like, that would be really nice for me. You know what I mean? Because one of them, spoiler alert, gets him to move in with her. So, like, after a week.
That's true, but I think you're just revealing that you are pro sexual assault. Got it. Moving on. So the doctors seem to be, like I said, an ass or whatever. And there's an American like liaison that is a complete dick to this dude that's been attacked. Like, even if you believe the story, an escaped lunatic.
This is my favorite part of the fucking movie. It's Frank Oz, and he's like, you could tell his normal voice because he sounds like Fozzie Bear as he comes in. He's like, well, you have not been, and it literally is Frank Oz, and it's just incredible to watch him because he's so uptight, and he's like, you need to mind your manners, sir, and then leaves, and I fucking love every moment of it because it's like, this movie is a comedy at its heart, and this is where that really starts. Like, everything else has been kind of played kind of serious, other than the I'm gonna look at your dick to find your religion bit. But once Frank Oz starts talking, you're like, okay, this is cartoonish. I got it.
He has the biggest grin on his face when he's like, yeah, your friend is dead. Like, he's so happy. Your friend is dead. And I told the cops, yeah, they could talk to you about whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If
Waka
they want to see
waka.
your dick, you got to show it to them. Okay. That's how it's going to be. and then, like, the dude's like, I forgot what he says, but he's like, it was an escape lunatic. And the dude leaves. And he's like, kids today. Like, he's mad at him. He was just attacking. He's been in a coma for 3 weeks. And you're telling him his friend's dead. And he's a little upset. And you're like, kids today. It's unbelievable. So the police come in, and the police don't believe him. When he says, I was attacked by a wolf. Nope, you're attacked by a escaped lunatic. That's the story. That's clearly those scratches across your chest are from an escaped lunatic.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And so then we cut to, like, he's just running naked. David's running naked in the woods, and he attacks a deer and he eats it. And I'm like, what is this, Keith? Like, I mean, I know it's like, it's dreaming. He's dreaming, obviously, but it's almost, it's like surreal, the way that it looks. It's very weird.
And 90% of this movie is dreams. Like, 90% of the things that happen in this movie don't happen in this movie. They're all.
Is it real? Is it dreams? Yeah. What's going on? So, now he's back at he's awake or whatever in the hospital, and the nurse is feeding him. And to your point earlier, there's some chemistry here.
Oh yeah.
Like, they have some really good chemistry. I think he has another bad dream, and then the doctor comes in, and again, we're just rehashing where the doctor's like, no, you're attacked by a lunatic. I don't care what you think. You know what I mean? That's the gist of it. And this, to me, this is the thing that always stood out to me, even as a kid, that I didn't understand. And it was super weird. And I still don't like it to this day. We cut to a dream where David is at his home with his family, and Nazi looking demons show up, and they blow his family away. They set his house on fire, and they make him watch, and then they slit his throat, and then he wakes up.
Quote unquote wakes up, and then
they do that whole bit. So I don't get this at all. I don't even understand, like, what they're going for with this.
I think,
why is it Nazi zombie looking guys?
I think it's,
what does this have to do with anything?
Nothing is the answer. But I think I think it's supposed to be Nazi werewolves, Nazi wolf creatures. But I think it's also supposed to, like, from a story standpoint, show he is losing his connection to reality. But But again, there's 9,424 dream sequences in this movie. So it's like that's just all you wanted. You really wanted to do a Nazi sequence and you couldn't figure out how to put it in this movie. So all of a sudden he's having bad dreams. That's what feels like is happening in this movie over and over again, you know?
Yeah, especially like if you showed somebody a clip of this movie and that's what you showed them, you'd be like, yeah, this is American Werewolf in London. You'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, it
Absolutely.
doesn't make any
And
sense.
it's like the biggest scene to me is that and the transformation. Those are the two scenes I always think about when I think about this movie. And one of them is not
100%.
fucking real. Like it's not, yeah.
So it's like you said, he quote wakes up and then the nurse gets killed by said Nazi wolf creature, whatever you want to call it. And then he wakes up again, I guess, but you've already kind of established that you're going to trick us
Yeah.
if you're dreaming or not dreaming and what's real and what's not real. And he's awake, like I said, he's eating breakfast, but then his friend, a mangled Jack, is right there beside him talking to him. So again, is he dreaming still? But the dude's talking to him and he looks awesome, by the way.
Looks
He
incredible.
looks great.
Incredible.
Great special effects on his face.
And those eggs look delicious. When he steals some of the eggs from him, those eggs look amazing.
So Jack basically tells him, hey, it was a werewolf that attacked us. It wasn't like a normal wolf. And you're a werewolf now. And I'm in limbo. So you've got to kill yourself.
Yeah.
That's the gist of the conversation. And if you kill yourself, it'll set me free from limbo and it will stop you from potentially
killing
other people. So excuse me. So then he freaks out, obviously, as one would if you are hearing this and you're seeing your dead friend talk to you. And he freaks out and the nurse comes running in to see what's wrong. And what's so funny is she basically says, he says like, hey, I'm a werewolf. He tells her the whole story. She's into it.
Yeah. She's like,
She
let's
is
fuck
hardcore into it.
right now. Like that's
So yeah, she is like super hardcore into it. He's saying this crazy stuff. So I thought, Keith, maybe you should try that with a woman. Just like, just like, hey, I'm a werewolf.
I'm a
You
werewolf.
think that's cool? You want
That's
to make
why
out?
I need the tattoo. I'm so furry. I'll just be like, I'm a little bit more forlorn. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Exactly. So what you said earlier, immediately after he said all that, she's like, hey, you got a place to stay? You want to stay with me? Like,
Instantly.
that's how it works. Super easy.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome. And so this guy, I guess he's being coy, but it's just dumb about it because she shows off her apartment and he's like, oh, wait a minute. There's only one bed? Like what? I don't understand. And she's like, yeah, I know. There's only one bed. Like she's being all seductive and he's like being an idiot, I guess. So after they just talked about the bed, then they go hook up in the shower. So no nudity though. Not yet.
No,
not yet on the nudity front. So afterwards, he sees his friend again, looking worse.
Yeah.
So I do like that aspect.
I like the fact every time you see him, he's decomposed a little bit more. Yeah.
Yes, I do like that a lot. But it's just a rehash of the earlier conversation. There's no real new information given other than his friend just looks super dope. And he's saying, kill yourself. You got to kill yourself. And again, he tells the nurse again, all right, time to fuck again. Like it's just the way it goes. It's amazing how hot she is for this.
What's
crazy
super
talk.
Interesting though is that he talks to her about being a Wolfman and she's all about it. But then when he tries to talk to her about the movie Wolfman starring Lon Chaney, which sort of like sets up the whole plot of like, you have to be in love with someone to kill the blah, blah, blah. She's not boning after that. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe the problem is I have podcasts talking about movies instead of me just being a werewolf. Like, and so we could start a podcast where we talk about my problems as a werewolf and we'll call them like and subscribe, like and throw and subscribe. It'd be pretty great. Nothing.
I did like how you explained to the people listening. So good one, because I guess if you're listening to a podcast about American Werewolf in London, you probably have heard the term lycanthrope. I'm just guessing. Just a shot in the dark, Keith. So now we cut to the doctor from earlier. I totally forgot about him. I'm going to be honest. I was like, who's this guy? I was like, oh, it's his doctor. So even though he gave no indication, about like the story, like I'm heading to this pub, the shaky cauldron or whatever you called it, the killing of the lamb.
Yeah.
Sacrificial deer, whatever.
Yeah.
And he knows exactly where to go. He goes right to the place and he's like, hey, remember those two guys that were here? Yeah, it sucks about them. They said it was a werewolf. What's up with that?
And it's also, I love this scene because you're seeing East Proctor during daylight, right? And it's the sacrificial lamb and a chicken house. That's all that's in this fucking town. And the way this doctor drinks his Guinness is he does this weird like mustache wipe after every drink.
Every time.
I'm like, I'm mesmerized by it. I don't know if it's dorky or if it's cool, but I love it for some reason, I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then obviously this happens in movies, like continuity errors where at one point he like almost downs the whole thing and he's done. And then it cuts back to him and it's like, almost a full glass again.
Which is that barkeep lady's really good at her job. She just sneaks in there mid-conversation. Yeah.
So one of the locals actually does tell him, starts to tell him like what's going on, but gets interrupted by another local. So he does, think something is weird at the very least, So now we're back to David, right? He's already explained to the nurse on more than one occasion, he's a werewolf. And this is how it's going to be. And she's like, oh, okay, well, it's a full moon tonight, so we'll see you later. I got to head to work. And she just dips.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you're even entertaining the idea, I'm not saying I want to necessarily be there.
But take a night
then
off.
I might get killed.
Yeah,
but, yeah, I think I want to see what's going to happen.
But, this is the thing, though. There is so much of what happens next that I didn't want to see happen because this is the slowest fucking montage in the history of mankind. And there's like moments where he just opens the door to her flat and walks away and just leaves the goddamn door open. And it made me so frustrated. It's using Bad Moon by CCR, which is great. But there's like a 75-minute shot of him just walking back and forth in this room. And it's like, it so drags so much. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
We also like have to see him like break into the apartment for no reason. It doesn't come back. There's nothing to that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you're talking about how slow it is. It's so funny because it's so slow until the second it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's immediately slow and he's sitting there reading a book and he just hops up, I'm so fucking hot. And he just like immediately starts freaking out, ripping off his shirt.
Instantaneously.
Drenched in sweat.
Yeah.
Exactly. It like hits him out of the blue. It's so funny. Yeah. And again, whatever you say about this movie, like it, hate it, whatever, this is the gold standard of werewolf transformations.
Absolutely.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It is so well done, especially for the time.
Yeah.
Holds up today. There's nothing wrong with, if you see that in a movie today, I'm not giving it a second thought because it looks perfect.
And there's like 19 different things and tricks that they're doing and combining them all where like part of it's his body's half out of the floor and you could see his chest caving in. It's amazing. It's expertly done. Like this whole section is just masterpiece. So,
and even on top of that, like how good the special effects are, what you feel his pain. And that's awesome. You feel his bones stretching and his, you feel it all. And again, like I said, it's the gold standard for werewolf transformations. Absolutely. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So he transforms and, busts out of the apartment, or I don't know if he had to, since like you said, he left the door wide open. He might've just walked on out or crawled out. And, so he attacks some random people, outside. The doctor ends up calling the nurse and telling her what he's found out at the pub, while we're cutting between these werewolf attacks with the guy. And he's attacking, again, like this couple on the street. He's attacking homeless people,
Yeah.
a dude in the subway. He's just a real werewolf about town. He's all over
absolutely,
the place.
yeah.
And the whole thing in the subway, this is another incredible shot to me. On the escalator, when the guy's running from him and he falls down on the escalator and he's looking down, and the overhead shot looks incredible.
That tunnel shot too. That tunnel shot where we're chasing him down that subway tunnel, like, is glorious. And it's crazy too, because there's a shot where he's attacking the 3 homeless guys that it cuts to a shot of the wolf, like super close up, and the angle's wrong, which I know sounds so weird, but it's just from like a rudimentary standpoint, the angle is not what it should be. And then when we get to that subway scene, everything is so perfect, almost Kubrick-like in its execution.
It definitely reminded me of Kubrick. Yeah. Now that you say that, I couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but I was like, yeah, that's what it's kind of like for sure.
And it's that whole sequence, especially how serious that guy with the umbrella is, and how much a douchebag he just, like, I just want to punch him every time I see him. But then the camera as it glides through the subway station, following him, and then running down the tunnel, and like you said, that overhead shot where you're not seeing all of the wolf, but you're seeing enough of it to see that it's a tangible thing. Oh, terrifying. Great
yeah,
work.
It is terrifying. Absolutely. So then we cut to, he just David wakes up naked in the zoo, in I guess a wolf den, enclosure. Yeah. So he wakes up there, and you can clearly see where like the cage has kind of been ripped where he's got in there.
And you can also clearly see some penis. So this is some nudity for you right there.
This is the nudity. If you were looking for it, it's full frontal nudity.
Yeah.
With David. And so this is a little, I don't know if troubling is the word, but when he's running around naked, that's fine. Naked man in a movie does not bother me. Okay. In fact, Keith enjoys it because he wants people to look at his penis while he's passed out.
Tell my religion by what you see. Yeah.
So, but you are a naked man hiding in a bush, calling for a little kid to come
here, kid.
Yeah. For his balloons? What?
And you don't, like, I don't understand why you don't just yoink the balloons from within the bush, but instead you come outside of the bush so you can show him your bush, I guess. Like, bad choice.
Yes. Later on, he tries to get arrested. This is all he had to do.
That's all you had to say. Hey, I showed a kid my dick earlier. Bam, in jail forever. Unless your name's Jimmy Savile, you're going to jail. That's a British pop culture true crime joke.
I was gonna say, I don't get that reference. I was like, is that one of your buddies from high school? He just got out of it. He knows some people. I don't want to say what happened, but he definitely showed his wing to some kids.
No, Jimmy Savile's a monster. But
it's all about who you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So he eventually, through a series of events, gets some clothes, steals a coat, gets back to the nurse's flat. And again, the nurse has already talked to the doctor. She knows that there's some crazy shit going on. And he's like super adrenaline rushed from all of this. He doesn't realize that he's killed people at this point. He
just thinks he woke up naked in a zoo, like we always do.
Yeah. Especially when, again, your buddies told you you're a werewolf. You're going to kill people, and you wake up naked in the zoo and you don't know what happened. You think everything's cool. But anyway, so then they decide to head to go see the doctor, because the doctor's got information. I need to talk to him. We got to solve this problem. But they get in a taxi, and I guess the taxi driver talks about all the murders last night. And so that's when David realizes, oh shit, I did this. And he freaks out. So he doesn't want to go to the doctor now. Now you got to arrest me so I don't do this again. So he runs out of the taxi. He tries to get arrested by a cop, but the cop won't arrest him for reasons. I get plot reasons, I suppose. I mean, all you had to do is punch the cop, I guess.
Exactly.
Like if you really cared.
And you're wearing an NYU hoodie for the vast majority of this movie. If you've been to New York, you know you can punch a cop and get arrested. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. So he doesn't really want to get arrested.
no.
It's like his conscience, like trying. He's like, dude, I tried to not kill these people. I told a cop. He just didn't do anything. So he just runs away when the cop won't arrest him. And I really like this scene too. I don't remember this scene as like a kid when I watched this, but when he calls his family, to speak to his parents, and he ends up just talking to like his sibling, and it's so heartbreaking because he just wants to talk to his parents.
Yeah,
and
I love the fact you don't cut to the sister either. It's just him. It's just his side of the conversation, and
yes,
it's so great. Yeah.
And then, after he hangs up the phone, he tries to slit his wrists, but he can't. So obviously, that's what he's thinking about when he's on this call. I want to talk to my mom and dad one last time before I kill myself. So great scene, great moment. And so then he can't do it, but he sees his decomposing buddy. It's like pointing to a peep show. He's like, hey, check this out. So he goes in and he goes in the porno, and now it's his buddy along with the people that he's killed, all mangled through various ways. And this is definitely one of the scenes we're talking about where it's a comedy scene.
Yeah.
Because they're all talking about, hey, you could kill yourself this way. Oh, that might not work. And they're all just talking about ways to kill yourself. And they're being serious, but it's definitely comedic effect, the way that they're talking about, killing yourself. All with a porno playing in the background.
The entire time. And it's a silly porno. The fact that the guy walks in and it's like, honey, how could you cheat on me? I've never seen you before in my life. Oh, I'm sorry. And just walks out. Like,
again, in a movie filled with some stuff that I just don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're, I get the conversation of all the people telling it, but the fact that it's in a porn, I guess they're trying to add to the comedic effect. Is that what you feel like they're doing here?
Yeah, I think the 70s and 80s were just weird. That's what I think was happening, when they weren't as civilized as South Park is now.
Yeah, exactly. That's not weird at all. But then in the theater, he starts changing again. And then the police show up.
Well, before that, this is the part that's the weird. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. There's the one guy that just comes up and watches him change for a second. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. And this dude's like Pee Wee Herman heavy breathing beside him. He feels like he's from Maniac, just like beside him. It's just a weird touch in the movie.
Exactly. So he does change. Cops show up. Like I said, it's craziness. We got like decapitations, car wrecks. It's pretty cool. Then the wolf like busts through and runs off.
After he kills the one cop that didn't believe he existed.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the nurse and the doctor show up. And the police corner him like in an alley, down an alley. But the nurse like bursts through the line and runs down the alley. So it's just Werewolf David at the end of the alley and the nurse.
Yeah.
And they're just, she's confronting him. She's just standing there. And then what happens is she says, like, she knows it's him. And she just says, I love you. And the wolf kind of lunges at her. And then the police just blow him away. They shoot him. And he, the camera like pans away with him laying there naked with like bullet holes in him. And then we cut to the credits with the upbeat classic Blue Moon, like a comedic way.
Blue Moon, you saw me standing alone. Yeah.
So that is An American Werewolf in London.
How did you feel about
overall thoughts? Okay. I'll go first. I'll definitely go first because again, I'm not a fan of werewolf movies in general. I don't know what it is. They're just not great to me. I like this movie just fine. My letterbox score is 3 out of 5. You know, it's a good movie. I definitely don't think anybody's crazy for thinking this is the best werewolf movie or an incredible werewolf movie. It's just werewolf movies are not my taste. But as I said earlier, it's the gold standard for werewolf transformations. There is no doubt about it. It's just there's too many weird elements that I
Yeah.
just can't get behind. I can't get behind the Nazi dreams. You know, I just can't get behind that. And the fact that they try to trick you sometimes where, oh, is this a dream? It's not a dream. And you're just, I just feel like it's just nothing's really happening in this movie right now. So let's just show them eating a deer, you know, in a dream.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. I think for me, look, I think there's a lot of this movie that has aged poorly. A lot of the timing of the film itself and the pacing of some of the cuts, I think hasn't aged super well. Um, and I think the dream aspects have little connective tissue to the rest of the story, and because of that, it just feels awkward at times.
Right.
But for some reason, still, even with all those flaws, the things that it's doing, I like so much. My letterbox is 5 stars for it because it is like it is great in its absurdity. You could always go further, but there's something about how weird it is that makes it so appealing to me. I also love the fact that it's not your typical werewolf storyline where he's fighting the struggle until about the halfway point and then he keeps turning into the wolf, and he is having that, do I like this, do I not like that? That's not what this movie is. It's basically one wolf out that we really see, and the other one sort of vaguely hinted at, you know. And that's kind of cool, that's kind of fun. So I like it. I'm interested to see, because what we do on the show is we also, after we watch the movie and review it, we pitch how we would remake the film. So how would you remake it? Who would you have in it?
Yeah. So, as far as the cast goes, is for David, I would have Shamik Moore.
Great.
I again Miles Morales from Across the Spider Verse. He has a childlike quality that I'm
Yeah.
going to be going for in what I'm talking about in my pitch or whatever. He's a man, but he sounds, you know, because I'm equating it to Miles Morales, you know. For Jack, his buddy Josh Hutcherson. Um, so that's going to be those two. But for the nurse character, it would be Mia Goth,
Great.
you know, Scream Queen, as far as that goes. Dr. Anthony Hopkins.
Great.
You know, you got a doctor role. You throw Anthony Hopkins in there. But this is my pitch. So at some point in the movie that we watched, not my pitch, the doctor's talking about the townsfolk and David believing that he is a werewolf because
Yeah.
the townsfolk believe he's a werewolf. And, you know, and it's some sort of psychosis or something like that. The doctor doesn't necessarily believe that David's a werewolf. He just thinks that he truly probably believes he's a werewolf, you know. So I would play on that. And ultimately, he's not a werewolf, but he thinks he's a werewolf via psychosis. But Mia Goth is so into this, and she's playing it up like she is the one that's twisting the screws, making him think he's a werewolf, and even potentially being the one that's doing the killing. Like she's not a
Oh,
werewolf,
okay.
but she's making him think that he's killing these people and he's a werewolf. And even you have a transformation scene, that's fine because he's believing that he is transforming. And whether or not, you know, it would be the twist at the end that he's not a werewolf. And so then there could be like camera footage where he's like freaking out, thinking he's transforming, but he's not. He's just like in
Yeah.
his state of mind, like really, really freaking out. And that's why at the end, when he's shot by the cops, he's just a crazy naked man running through the city. And he was attacked by a lunatic at the beginning, a naked, crazy lunatic at the beginning. And then he's the crazy lunatic.
At the end.
And he, maybe he attacks another guy and Mia Goth is like putting the blanket around that guy at the end of the movie. And then that's how I would end it.
That's pretty solid. I love the fact that you hate werewolf movies so much. You took the werewolf out of an American Werewolf in London.
100%. I made it better.
Well, you made it interesting, definitely.
I take that back. I did not improve upon American Werewolf in London. I'm taking that back.
You're gonna get a lot of hate mail from our 4 listeners who are really gonna be upset with you. For me, I would do it as a mini series. So 3 episodes, each 2 hours long. And I'll talk about that in a second. As Jack, I would get Jack Dylan Grazer as my Jack character. As David, I would have Aidan Gallagher from the Umbrella Academy, plays 5 or whatever it is.
Nice.
For my nurse, I would have Amelia Jones, who is from Coda. For my doctor, I would have Peter Davidson, who was one of the Doctor Who's. And then for the American ambassador, I would bring back Frank Oz and have him play the same part, now older. But I think mine would definitely delve into and play with this idea of like what's real and what's not, but in that sort of with Jack telling him that the more the werewolf in you takes over, it's going to destroy your connection to reality. So we would go more into those surreal dream sequences. We'd have more of those, him struggling with it, leading up to, he's not going to become a wolf until that 3rd episode, but everything else is dealing with the high strangeness. Maybe he goes to investigate it. Maybe the nurse does, whatever. But we'll play with that world a little bit more, and like all the legends about East Proctor and this town and all that sort of stuff, and just sort of flesh it out more, because I feel like a shot-for-shot remake, people aren't really going to dig that. But if you sort of delve into it a little bit more, it could be fun. And at the end, he is a werewolf in mine, but the whole thing's like, you have to kill the bloodline of the wolf, right? At the very end, when she gets shot, or when he gets shot, she's there. Maybe the blood squirted on her face or something like that. And she just like goes to touch her belly, and we're up on that. And then you hear like a little baby puppy howl or something like that. This suggests that maybe the bloodline wasn't over. Now what happens is Jack's still in limbo, all that sort of stuff. So that's how I would.
So you're going for a corny ending, like groan inducing. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's something that I want to do. I just had a thought of this. We've never done this before, and I'm going to throw it on you right now. If you had to make one Funko Pop, because we both love Funko Pops, you have a horror collection behind you. I have a shit ton over here. If you had to make a Funko Pop from an American Werewolf in London, what would your Funko Pop be?
It would be a werewolf, but it would be on all 4s, like potentially like after the transformation, but maybe not the complete transformation.
Okay.
But where he's stretched out on all 4s. That's
a great one.
Because over there I've got a cocaine bear, so he's on all 4s. So they've definitely,
I would do.
They've done that before.
Yeah, I would do David, but I would do him like he's in his whitey tighties, or I think he might be nude in the scene. I don't know, but his hand is stretching out, and maybe his face is warping a little bit, but it's mid transformation, so he just looks like he's in a shit ton of pain. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
But I'd also want, to be fair, a Jack one. The
Me
first
too.
time we see him with the effed up face, like
Absolutely,
that'd be a dope Funko Pop for sure.
And who wouldn't want a Frank Oz one in this movie? But speaking of great movies, look, this is our first episode of the new year 2024. We're only 7 months into 2024 when we're doing it, but last year, what a doozy when it comes to horror movies. What we wanted to do with this episode is we wanted to list our top 5 horror releases of the previous year. And I understand that Chad has an honorable mention as well. So Chad, if you want to list your honorable mention first, we can get started.
So, because it's not technically a movie, it is one of the episodes of Black Mirror. So I don't know if you watched the most recent this year's season of Black Mirror, but it's called Beyond the Sea. It was the episode that starred Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett.
Oh, cool.
Have you seen this at all?
I have not.
No. So it's definitely sci-fi, but it has horror-ish elements. But the gist of it is they're basically astronauts in a deep space mission, just the 2 of them. But they have basically synthetic bodies that look just like them on Earth, that's with their family. And when they go to sleep, they download their minds. into this synthetic robot body that looks just like them. So their family's not missing them. It's just like, hey, dad's gone to work today. And then, he's back, whatever. So that also is why they don't go crazy,
That's cool.
is
Yeah.
because it's not just the two of them. But this happens at the beginning. The inciting incident is there's people in the world that don't like these synthetic bodies because they're not like creations of God or something like that. They're created by man. So a group attacks one of the guy's families and destroys the synthetic body and kills his family. So now he's stuck on this ship all the time while his coworker, buddy, whatever you want to call it, every night gets to go home to his family. And it's kind of like a descent into madness kind of deal.
That's crazy.
And,
okay.
And it's really cool where it goes. You can kind of see where it goes if you see stuff, but it's cool. So that's my honorable mention because, again, it's not necessarily a true movie. It's an episode of Black Mirror.
And
check out Beyond the Sea.
Yeah, absolutely. And my honorable mention for absolutely horrifying things is politics, American politics in 2023 and 2024. All right. Do you want to start with your number 5?
Yeah, number 5. This one is my daughter's favorite horror movie of the year. And I really wavered on having this number 5. I feel like if I didn't have this at least on my list, I would catch shit for it. But my number 5 is Talk to Me.
It's great. So, it's a great one. It's a great one.
It's good. Is it number 5? I guess, when I'm stacking it up because, I really loved the hand stuff. Yeah. I mean, this is like me in high school. I loved hand stuff.
You guys hear it right now. Chad loved hand stuff in high school, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. And so I really liked all that stuff in the movie. My problem was that I didn't really care for the characters. I didn't really like them, care for them, root for them. So it, dropped it down a peg. But the horror was very, very well done.
Yeah.
Very well done.
That's
my number 5.
For me, it's like putting this list together. There's some horror movies I really liked, but it was hard for me to distinguish what are the 5 best ones that really stuck with me. It was kind of difficult for me to do. But my number 5 is one that I thought was just an exceptional movie. I had expectations going into it, and it sort of defied it. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it was still absolutely captivating and more of a drama about people surviving weird circumstances. And it's Godzilla -1, the first Godzilla film to be nominated for an Oscar. And it's just the idea of a kamikaze pilot who couldn't go through with it and the guilt he feels. What a fucking compelling place to start a movie. Then you're going to give me a giant dinosaur on top of that? Loved it. I loved it. That's my number 5.
I loved it too. I absolutely did. It was awesome. My number 4 is Scream 6. So we love Scream. Me and you both, we're huge fans of Scream. This is a worthy entry to the franchise. I'm a big fan of the core 4. Yeah. They're probably gone now and not going to be back in Scream 7. I don't know what they're going to do. They're kind of screwing around with the franchise. But Scream 5, it's not a reboot. It rebooted the core cast.
Yeah.
And it worked, and I love them. And I love them in 6. So potentially, if the same thing happens in 7 where we get a new cast, so be it. The reveal of the killers was kind of obvious, I think, more so than a lot of the other Screams, but it's still a Scream movie.
Yeah.
I still had fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think we're going to have a lot of the same ones on our list. Number 4 is Talk to Me for me. Look, it's undeniable A24 is the best studio out there right now.
Blumhouse.
Well, A24 is better, but they're doing some incredible stuff. And I loved everything about this movie. I love the turns that it took. I love the easy premise because it is something as simplistic as like a Candyman mythos is right there. And I don't need to know, you don't have a singular villain. You have a lot of stuff going on, and it's just this gateway portal type of story. I love that moment where they flip it on its head and she goes there is one of my favorite things I've ever seen in a movie. And I love how dark and nihilistic it is. And that made me like the characters. So yeah, I really dig what this movie did. I can't wait for the second one. I'm here for it. I found it very creative.
All right. So my number 3 was Evil Dead Rise. So this one was super creepy, super gross, terrifying villain,
Yeah.
terrifying. Love the shots through the keyhole, the eye hole, where it's already like a fisheye lens or whatever you want to call it, and then she just looks super creepy. I love it. I love the blood elevator that actually made sense.
Yeah.
It freaking worked. Like they did an homage to The Shining with a blood elevator that made sense. And
Yeah.
I don't think it was shoehorned in at all. It worked perfectly for me. And at the very least, it's one of the best title card I've ever seen in a
Yeah.
movie, ever. Horror anything. Amazing, amazing title card.
Absolutely. I agree with you so much that it's also my number 3 is Evil Dead Rise. That's 2 Aussie movies back to back on my list, but I loved Evil Dead Rise. I thought it was so atmospheric. I thought it was so phenomenal. It made me question what was wrong with me and the fact that I was both terrified of and attracted to the mother character at the same time. I looked at myself and with shame and confusion. Just phenomenal, gritty storytelling that was fun. I had a blast watching this movie. And again, like you were talking about with Scream 5, reinventing the core elements of it, it did the same thing. It gave you elements of what you knew before, but then in other ways, it sort of took off in a new direction. And I dug that. So yeah, I had a blast with it. I loved it.
Yep, big fan. But number 2, we talked about this movie during our Halloween 31 for 31 podcast. Came out of nowhere. My number 2 is When Evil Lurks.
Yeah.
This movie was shocking, shocking moments. Several times I'm just covering my mouth watching this movie. It is so well done. Talk about, like you said, nihilistic. It is amazing. I highly recommend this to any fan of horror movies.
Yeah.
Like, this is the recommendation. I know it's my number 2, but this is the recommendation for horror movies, people. If you haven't seen it, because it could be under a lot of people's radar, it's a foreign film. It's just on Shudder. It's not like a wide release type deal. Check this movie out. It's awesome.
Absolutely. My number 2 is Scream 6. Look, the Scream franchise to me is so defined by Neve Campbell because she is the greatest that walks the planet. So it's hard for me to say that they made a good Scream movie without her, but they still did. Would it have been number 1 had she been in it? Yes, clearly. But it's still, Jenna Ortega is phenomenal. Her and her sister are just anchors of this franchise. I like the core 4. I like those 2 better than anything. And so that's the thing that puts me in the most fear about Scream 7. But I love the fact, like, putting it in New York, putting it in a different location, even though you're not really leaning into everything that New York has to offer, you're still, how much breath of fresh air it put into that franchise was sort of phenomenal. I dug the shit out of it. I had a blast. And I agree with you that the villain reveal was pretty uh anticlimactic to a degree, but I think kind of all of them are ever since the first one. The first one was the only one that really caught me off guard, and everybody
Did
else
4 not catch you off guard with Emma Roberts?
kind of, but not as much. I mean, I guess by that point I had become so jaded to life in general. I was an older man then. But to me, the fun of the Scream movies isn't necessarily the reveal of the killer, but the fun of the kills, the fun of the chase, the fun of our
The
protagonist.
calls.
The
And the
calls.
calls were great in this with Courtney Cox
Yeah.
and Ghostface. Awesome.
And it's also just seeing our main protagonists be badass bitches. Like that's the appeal of the Scream movies, right? And so it's almost carries on the Ripley banner from Aliens in that
Right.
regard. So yeah, I dig it. It's definitely my number 2.
All right. So my number 1, you've already mentioned it. It's the Oscar nominated film, Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's my favorite Godzilla movie of all time. And it's because I love the characters. It's exactly what you're talking about. It is a character piece with Godzilla is there. And he looks incredible.
It looks
and
incredible.
he fucks shit up.
Yeah.
But in a lot of Godzilla movies, I don't care about the humans and what they're doing. Let's get back to Godzilla or whatever. This was like, I cared so much about these characters. It was so well done. And, I know the director had said something like, it's his audition for Star Wars. And what he did with this budget is incredible. And he's already met with Lucasfilm. Give this man a Star Wars is what I say.
Absolutely. It's weird. It's like, I don't necessarily really like happy endings in movies because I always feel like they're a cop-out, right? And I sort of compare this to the new Aquaman movie, where in the Aquaman storyline, there's a baby that fucking dies, but James Wan didn't have the balls to do it, right? And it kind of pissed me off. In this movie, I thought
You've made some awesome reveals today. I'm telling you, sexual predator. This baby didn't die, and it fucking pissed me off.
Right. And then in Godzilla the movie, they make out like they kill a character, and I was like, oh my God, how painful this is. And then at the end, they bring that character back, and normally I would be fuck you, Expendables 4. But this, I was like, yeah, this is great. Thank God. Thank God. My heart
I thought the same thing. Because
fun.
when that character died, I when it was heading that direction that the character might die, I was like, I'm gonna be so fucking pissed if this character dies. I'm going to be livid.
Yeah.
And the character dies. 100%. The character dies. And I am livid and heartbroken.
Yeah.
And when you start to just get a whiff that the person might not be dead, I'm like, roses. It's like, please be what I think this is. This is going to be so awesome if it is.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. It was phenomenal. And so my number one is When Evil Lurks. We've already talked about it a little bit. The thing I like, it is brutal. It is a brutal, creative movie that has its own lore that is so deep and complicated. One of the things I really like about American Werewolf in London is that it does add this lore aspect to the werewolf thing of the victims are in limbo forever until the bloodline ends. And that makes it feel so lived in. That's so cool. That's such an interesting turn of events. And I could watch 9,000 movies set in the When Evil Lurks world. And that would be something you should be concerned about. Not all this, I want babies to die bullshit, but that I would be okay with that. But this movie, that dog scene alone is the most incredible, most heart-wrenching thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm just, so atmospheric, so creepy, terrifying, fucking apple ice cream. What weird ass things are happening in this movie? I just dug the shit out of it. Yeah, loved it.
It pulls no punches. That is for sure.
Absolutely. So that's our top 5 of 2023 horror.
It's funny because we didn't talk about this beforehand, but we, other than the order being different, we have the same exact 5 movies in the top 5.
Absolutely.
So I can't remember if Skinamarink came out this year, but you didn't like Skinamarink?
No, I did not. I did not. I'm still mad at you for the text where you told me to watch that because you like, oh, you got to check this out, Keith. And then I did. I stared at a wall for 9.5 hours. I was so fucking pissed.
Awesome.
Anyway, but so that's what we got now. American Werewolf in London. What are we going to be reviewing next time?
Next time, from 1981 is The Burning.
Never is The Burning.
It's kind of like Friday the 13th, but it has Jason Alexander.
And he's got like the weed trimmers, right? Is that his weapon?
Yes. Yeah, weed trimmers is. I don't know if that's what he exclusively uses, but certainly he does use the weed trimmers.
I think I've seen this movie and I think I hated it. I think I have this gut reaction of not excited about this one. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, I've seen it, and I don't remember if I hated it or if it was just kind of like, to me, a cheap Friday the 13th knockoff. That might be what it ultimately ends up being. But I do want to say this because I neglected to mention it last time. In every 1980 movie we watched, there was an inappropriate age relationship. And so far, 1981, just 2 movies that's not been there.
What was our first 1981 movie?
What did we just watch last?
I get them out of my head so quickly that I try to.
Oh, Scanners.
Scanners. Is there any connection between Scanners and American Werewolf in London? People's heads kind of exploding and bursting into things, I guess.
Well, there's definitely some cover up, I'd say, in both.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that they have these, it's a Black Ops government group or whatever it is trying to cover up, you know, doing some stuff. And then the townsfolk is trying to cover that up. I don't know. Could be a leap, but there's nothing I can think of off the top of my head.
There's only one of them has a man showing his genitals to a kid. I think maybe like a loved one having to kill the other person, but she doesn't really kill him. The cops kill him. I don't know. This one has death by cop, so suicide by cop. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the next one is with The Burning, starring George Costanza himself.
Right.
Until then, Chad, where can the people find you?
On Twitter, X, and Instagram, NQC Podcast.
And if you're looking for me, you can find me in the not quite darkness.
Peace.
Buckle cake.